Well, welcome to Sea Files, folks. Oh, got some blue lights up ahead. Looks like some kind of police activity. Anyway, I wanted to take just a moment while I was on my way back home from CrossFit class and talk a little bit about mental attitude and survival mentality. I drove by a homeless guy pushing a cart as I was coming out of this area. And I remember when I was a cop out in San Diego, we had a lot of homeless, a lot of people that were down and out. And there's different reasons for homelessness. Some of it's just they're having a lot of cops. Okay, anyway, having just a hard time with life. You know, they got laid off. Don't have skills to gain work or something, or maybe it's just can't find anybody to hire you. They end up homeless. Some are drug addicts and they're homeless because of that. Some are alcoholics, they're homeless because of that. Some choose that lifestyle. Some homeless folks want to be homeless. That's what they want because they don't want responsibility. They don't want to have to deal with things. But for the person that doesn't want to be down and out, doesn't want to be in those situations, there's a mental attitude that you have to have to fight your way back out of those situations. When I was a teenager, there was a period of time, short period of time, a few months, that I was living out of my car. When I was young, married, my wife and I, we didn't have much. We didn't have hardly anything. And we barely had enough money to buy something to eat, you know. So we've been there. We've been to where, we were down and out. We didn't have anything. Our prospects weren't real strong. And yet, my mentality was, I'm not staying in this situation. And I don't care what it takes. I am going to fight my way back up out of this problem, out of this low income and not having enough to take care of things. I'm going to fight my way out of it. And once you gain the mentality and the attitude to do that, things become different. That's the first step to climbing out of a bad situation. Now, we could sit around and we could have blamed taxes. We could have blamed the government. We could have blamed circumstances. We could have blamed the people who maybe weren't hiring me in business or something of that nature. We could always blame shift onto someone else and stay in the bad situation because, hey, those other people, they just won't help us. They won't do what they need to do to help me come out of this situation. And that's why I'm here. And that's called blame shifting. It's everybody else's fault. And until the government does, passes that bill or does what they have to do to help me, the victim, then I'm going to be in this situation and I'm going to be bitter toward the government and all this kind of stuff, right? But folks, that's not real life. That's not reality. Reality is, a lot of the time, when we're in a bad situation, it's because we put ourselves there. It's because we made a bad decision. It's because we had the wrong attitude. Now, there are some times when circumstances do occur that can mess you up. We've been trying to build up a emergency fund. Well, we got hit with a big car repair bill. Now, we could say, well, doggone that car repair bill, we can't just get ahead because always having to pay for something breaking down or something like that. We can't do what we need to do. And I could just huff and puff and, pout and give up, right? Or I could say, okay, well, we're going to do what we have to do to take care of the repair, and we're just going to keep digging and fighting until we meet our goal. It's mental attitude. I see these videos on YouTube sometimes of people just getting beat up really bad, and they don't do anything to defend themselves. And this is where I'm talking about survival mentality. And they just sit there and either they don't know how to defend themselves or not very good at it. They don't put very much effort into it. And so they just sit there and get beat up. Or maybe they lose their life. There's some of them I've watched where I'm going, oh man, that person just lost his life because he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know how to survive when he was in that situation. There's something I learned years ago, and various people use this. Law enforcement uses it, special forces use it, military infantry use it, the ships at sea, the Navy ships, they'll use this concept. And the concept is pretty simple. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. Now, they say it a little bit differently. They add a little bit more flavor to it. I keep it clean. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. So what do? You start learning how to defend yourself. You toughen up your mental attitude. You toughen up your body. So when you're confronted with a situation where you have to use self-defense, you've already produced the mental attitude of we're not backing down and we're not bending and we're not going to go down so easy. And you want to come at me? Well, okay, we're going to war. That's the mental attitude you have to have. I've had some bad dudes, and I mean some guys that would mess you up, get up in my face in the streets of San Diego, back streets of some of those tough neighborhoods when I was a cop, and challenged me. As an officer, you can't back down. You don't have that option. So you develop that mental attitude. And of course, there's the syndrome of fight or flight. There's a third one that goes in there, which they really don't talk about that much, and that is freeze. The deer in the headlights, right? Where people just freeze up and they don't do anything. Or run, get out of the situation if you can. That's flight or fight. That's the three psychological responses to a threat. And so what does that require? What does it require to be able to stand your ground and fight? It requires a strong mental attitude. And you have to learn that. You have to seek it. It has to be intentional. You have to intentionally work to develop that kind of a mental attitude for survival. I didn't know anything about guns before I went into the military. I mean, we go hunting with 22 rifles, you know. I mean, I had a picture of me standing by a rack of rifles when I was a teenager. But when it comes to actual gun fights, I didn't know anything until I joined law enforcement in San Diego. And we were I went to the HSS international classes where we were being trained close quarters battle by former SEALs, Marine Recons, Army Special Forces, LA SWAT, people like that were coming in. This company would hire them to come and train officers, and they would teach us their tactics to survive on the street, survive if you get into a gunfight, survive if you're clearing a building and you engage in a gun battle. And it took a mental attitude. You had to develop it starts with the mind, folks. It doesn't start with conditioning the body. It starts with conditioning the mind. And then as you're conditioning the body, your mind is continuing to develop. It's not an easy thing to do to stand your ground under threat. But if you're going to survive in some situations, you have to be able to do that. And so I'm tired of people, especially white people, who have been targeted so much just simply because they're white. And just getting pummeled. And they're just sitting there not doing anything to defend themselves. And I'm going, what has happened to the mental toughness of people to defend themselves? I think it's been indoctrinated out of them. They were taught the whole time they're coming up through school the zero tolerance policy. Even if you're being attacked, you're not allowed to defend yourself or you'll be suspended from school. That sends the wrong message to that kid. And there are teenagers that have lost their life because that policy was drummed into their head. And there are schools that have that policy to have blood on their hands. You say, oh, come on, it's not that serious. Yeah, it is that serious. Some of you educators are clueless. Absolutely clueless about real life. I lived real life. Deployed twice with the military. Spent 30 years working the streets. I've been through hard times. I've been down the road of hard times, of real life. And some of you folks are clueless. And some of you folks have no clue why the truckers are doing what they're doing as far as their boycott of New York. You're just completely clueless as what's behind that. You know what they're doing? Fight or flight, right? Well, they chose to fight. They knew when that decision came out about Trump that they were under threat. That the entire country was under threat. This decision by that judge in New York and Letitia James and that whole kangaroo court sent a message reverberating across the entire country that justice does not exist in America anymore. And we don't care who you are. If we don't like your belief system, if we don't like your politics, if you don't do what we tell you, we are going to bring you into a kangaroo court and we're going to prosecute you, and you're not going to be allowed to have a defense, and we're going to prosecute you on a crime that doesn't even exist, and we'll make sure it hurts. That message went out to the entire country when that decision was made. So what are you going to do? Freeze? Like a deer in the headlights? Run? Okay, well, there's Mexico and there's Canada. Are you going to fight? And say, no, you're not doing that here. They've gotten up in our face and they're challenging us to a fight. That's what happened in that court decision. And they're up in the face like this. Like they're about to swing. Like, we're going to throw down. That's what that judge did. He told the entire country, we're throwing down. And the truckers look at that and they said, you want to throw down? All right, we're throwing down. We're going to war. That's exactly what happened. And I see some folks on their channels, their YouTube channels, stuff, completely, utterly clueless about what just happened and about real life. If you've had it easy all your life and you spent your life working in a cubicle behind a computer, and you've never been in a fight, you've never had a threat come at you, you've never had to take somebody down to protect a community or to protect another person or to protect yourself, and life has just been hunky-dory, then you don't know what it means to fight for a cause. Clueless. And it's not necessarily your fault. But if you want to get beyond that victim waiting for a suspect to take you out situation, you're going to have to be intentional, and you're going to have to learn how to gain that mental attitude, and you're going to have to learn how to defend yourself, and you're going to have to learn how to fire back when they fire at you. Well, that's not a very Christian attitude. Self-defense is legal in the Bible. The Bible teaches self-defense. A man that doesn't take care of his family is worse than an infidel. That means if somebody breaks in the house and you don't defend your family, God doesn't have a very high opinion of you. Okay? What I'm telling you is biblical. Christians who want to be all sweet and nice and kind all the time and never stand up and get in the face of an aggressor and say, you might want to back down or you're going to be in a world of hurt. And the thing that most people can't understand or stand about Trump is that he's a fighter. He doesn't back down. Somebody challenges him, he goes, okay, we're throwing down. I got it. I understand. You just challenged me. You threw the first punch, we're fighting. Now that's metaphor, because his fighting is doing business and negotiations, and now these court cases that he has to deal with, which are kangaroo courts. Folks, it's all about mental attitude. There are days I would come home from work wondering how I survived that day. And the only answer I could give is the Lord took care of me. Otherwise, I would have either been in the hospital or dead. Real life is dangerous. So, to survive it, you're going to have to get strong mentally, physically, and in your ability to defend yourself. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on the C-Files.